On today's Active Self-Protection Extra lesson, we're continuing a series that I'm affectionately referring to as Butthurt Inducing Truths. Today's truth, your Serpa holster, it's hot garbage and you need to replace it. Let's talk about that. So first of all, I want you to head over to my video that we made a little while ago on the things that a holster needs to do to be acceptable as a holster. And if you follow those things, particularly that it covers the trigger guard completely, that it holds the firearm securely, and that it makes the firearm accessible when you need it, on the surface, the Serpa holster meets those requirements. However, I want to show you that I don't believe at the end of the day it does meet all those requirements, and because it doesn't meet all those requirements, I want you to take this, toss it in the trash, and go get a good one. I have for you today 5 reasons why the Blackhawk Serpa holster is absolutely hot garbage, and I think you should replace it. And yes, I know, there's gonna be 500 people who are gonna say, but mine's never had a problem. I'm not talking about yours. I'm talking about all the holsters that we see all the time and for all the reasons that they all suck, not yours in particular. Rule number 1, that this holster design is hot garbage, is a safety issue, and that issue is that it facilitates negligent discharges when you draw the firearm. And I know people are gonna say, but John, that's a training issue and people should be trained to draw their firearms safely. And I agree with that. However, this design actually accentuates safety problems. It makes them more likely, and it makes people shoot themselves when they draw their firearm if their mechanics aren't perfect. Don't believe me? I have video proof.
I just shot myself. Oh, son of a...
This is why this happens, and I want to show it to you. So what happens when you draw this gun is that you place your hand firmly on the firearm and you get a full firing grip, and what's supposed to happen, I'm going to move it here so you see, is that you use the pad of your finger to depress the retention release. And then when you do, the gun can come out, and that's what's supposed to happen. You are along the slide, and you can see exactly that you're safe in this instance. If you're not depressing the paddle release here, the holster is secure and it will not come out of the holster. However, this is the problem that we see. When people start drawing this firearm under stress, they start having problems. When might you draw a firearm under stress? I'm thinking maybe when you need to draw it to shoot somebody because your life's at risk. That might be stressful. Here's what we see again and again, and we see it all the time, is that under any kind of stress, instead of using the pad of the finger, what tends to happen is people grab the gun, they start pulling it out of the holster, and then here's what happens. If I'm putting any pressure outward on this holster, when I go to press the button, it does not work. You can see, and I'm gonna show you, I'm putting a lot of pressure. You can see it on my finger there with this holster, and it doesn't work. And so because it's stuck in there, so then what happens is people go, oh, it doesn't work, so they jam it down there into the holster, they press really hard with their trigger finger, because that's what you tend to do. You need more pressure because it's not working what you got, and then they pull the gun out of the holster, and that's what happens. And if you see it again, let's watch that video again from Guns and Ammo, and you'll see that's exactly what goes down here. Is he puts too much pressure with the pad and the tip of the finger, and it comes out like this, and thankfully he didn't negligently discharge the firearm. So that's a constant thing. I hear of people shooting themselves on the way out of the holster with these holsters on a ridiculously regular basis. And for the issue of safety alone, several very important organizations and significant trainers banned them from their classes. Recently, the Los Angeles Police Department banned the use of the Serpa holster for all officers. That's pretty telling. It's one of the largest departments in the United States, and they saw the safety issue with the Serpa and they said no more. The Federal Law Enforcement Training Center also bans it, except for those who are required to wear it for duty, and they have to pass a secondary course before they can bring a Serpa holster to FLETC. Guys like Larry Vickers ban it in class. So does Kyle DeFore, national level trainers that say no dice. Places like Gunsight, and Gunsight is old school as they are, they say, no, we really highly recommend that you use other holsters. Larry Vickers does not allow them in open enrollment classes because he says that in open enrollment classes, he cannot verify that the person who is wearing it is competent with it, and so he won't allow it unless that person wears it for duty use, and it's a required item for duty use, and he has to clear that with him in advance. I don't allow him in my classes as well for the very self-same reasons. Not that I'm at the level of trainer of those guys, but I'm saying for the very reason that I teach a lot of introductory students and a lot of intermediate students, and I can't guarantee that they have the level of safety to not make the mistakes that that holster accentuates. The safety concern is a huge problem. Cue the angry people saying, oh, but that's a training issue. It's not. It's a design issue. Even without the safety issue, though, there's significant other issues with this Serpa, and this is exactly the one you're going to buy at Walmart, right? You're going to buy this. This is exactly what shows up at Walmart.com, and this is what you're going to get at your local gun store, and there's a lot of problems with this holster. First and foremost among them, after safety, is the fact that it's flimsy. These little belt loops right here, they suck and they will break. Pro tip. Any gear for firearms use in a defensive context that you can buy at Walmart is hot garbage. You should throw it away, buy something better. I have probably broken 5 or 6 or 8 of these off of students when we're doing mat-based classes with blue guns and stuff like that. This little bit right here, it just breaks off. It never holds up. This is garbage, and this is what most people carry when they carry Serpa. Now, I will say this, on the other hand, is a military-grade Serpa, and it is made of much thicker material. You can see here, you're not breaking this off for nothing. That's not a concern here. This one also has the hood on it. So this is not what most people would find in a Serpa. This is not that $40 or $50 holster that you're buying at Walmart. This ain't it. So this is not what I'm complaining about from the perspective of breakage. Still has the problem with safety. Number 3 problem with the Serpa is that you can get stuff inside here, inside the locking mechanism, and if you do, you have a gun that's utterly and totally locked up and you're going to need to Dremel to get a gun out of it. And if you don't believe me, let's watch Craig Douglas and Paul Gomez try to get a gun out that's been locked up in some ECQC evolutions.
Yeah, he's pulling on the gun. Pull 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 on the gun. I'm doing. Okay, the lock is well.
Unbelievable.
Yep. Look at that shit. What's happened here essentially is we're.
I can see it.
You can see. Guys, listen up. Let me get this on video. What's happened here essentially is we're running some evolutions where we've got a shooter that's been knocked, and we're out here in Arizona. We got a lot of dirt. Okay, and Jason here, one of our students, is running a Blackhawk Serpa, and basically we just saw this had happened. What's happened is apparently all the dirt, the loose dirt, has gotten in the button, and it's fouled this button, so he can the gun is actually locked into the holster. Just so you guys see, this is not. Paul is going to hold this button down. Well, first of all, Jason, can you draw the gun?
Absolutely not.
Nope. Draw it. Jason's a big, strong guy. He's not a so I mean, Paul, hold the gun. Nancy, try and pull it out. We need to get my T-gun out anyway.
Wow, the holster broke. Well, no, it didn't. It just came out of the screws.
No, so it broke at the screws.
Yeah, here's the belt plate.
Yes, he's showing. Hold on, show this. Get this on video. It busted at the plate. My battery's already died, so. Okay, so it busted at the plate. Now roll it over so it shows how.
I'm going to show you another picture from a law enforcement friend of mine that he sent to me, and here's what happens in this particular picture. He was involved in a fight with a bad guy, and that bad guy dragged him along the ground for about 15 feet on asphalt. And as he did, he was on his gun side, and so this side, where the retention mechanism is, scraped on the ground. Now, he didn't pay attention to that, and he didn't see the fact because he never had to draw his gun in that particular instance. But the next stop he made when he felt like he needed to draw his firearm, that what had happened was some plastic had scraped down inside there and had locked up his holster. He had a gun that he could not get out of his holster. Thankfully, that didn't cost him his life. Thankfully, he had other partners there who could handle the lethal force portion of that stop. But this is a huge issue. This locking mechanism can get jammed up and you cannot get the gun out. Next problem I had, you cannot inspect and you cannot maintain the locking mechanism in this holster. There's no way to get this locking mechanism out. There's no way to inspect it to see if the springs are still good. There's no way to do preventative or even, palliative maintenance on this particular holster. It's designed and built to be a throwaway. So if you have a problem with it, you toss it. That's not a good quality design. I'll show you one that does. This is a Safariland ALS, and you can see this little bit right here means you can take out the entire retention mechanism. You can inspect it. You can replace any parts in it that give you a hard time. You can adjust it. Far superior design as far as maintenance. Yes, friends, holsters require maintenance. They all require maintenance. You have to maintain your holsters. Sure do. My fifth concern with the Serpa holster is that there are other options at similar price points that don't have any of the problems that the Serpa does. So why would you use one that sucks when you have one at almost the same price point that will do you just as well that doesn't have the problems, like the Safariland ALS. This is my ALS that I use if I carry a Glock. It's left-handed because I'm correct-handed. And what you notice here is that the retention mechanism is right here, is on the thumb side. So if I get a full firing grip on the gun, what happens here is I don't use my trigger finger at all. Instead, as I get a full firing grip, the thumb does what the thumb does. I don't have to press or anything like that. I just get a full firing grip. It defeats the retention device and out comes the gun. So I have active retention, but actually passive release. That's highly preferable. Safariland makes a different one for guns that, they don't have the ALS for. They don't make an ALS for my VP9. And so because they don't make an ALS, I use this GLS. Someone at Safariland, if you're watching this, please, for the love of God, make an ALS for my VP9. Pretty please? With the GLS, what we have here is a grip retention device that you use your middle finger. Once again, you get a full firing grip on the gun. When I go to grab the gun, I get a full firing grip on the gun. Don't use my trigger finger here. When I do, it releases the retention and the holster operates and the gun comes out. So once again, active retention, passive release, better design. Another problem that we see fairly regularly with this holster is that when, if you're fighting for this gun, now I said it before and I'll say it again, entangled gunfights aren't all that common. However, when you're open carrying, especially for duty, if you're a law enforcement officer or something like that, you can fight for your gun, and it is something that happens not completely irregularly. So if you're going to defend your gun, if this gun is on your hip, one of the first things that we teach everybody is to get your hand on the gun. So if the gun comes out of the holster, if for some reason it comes out, you're the one that's holding it by the holding parts and not the bad guy. Well, of course, the problem with that is, and you can see this one's a little tight, one of the problems that we see with that is that if I get a full firing grip on this gun, then it naturally puts my trigger finger in the spot to remove the safety device. Now again, if a bad guy gets a hold of that and he's fighting me for the gun, I just grabbed around that in any capacity, and what that did was that defeated the retention mechanism. And so any kind of fighting for this gun, I have a challenge that it will come out more easily in a retention fight, which is kind of defeating the purpose of why you carry a retention holster. If I do that same thing and I have an ALS on, the only change that I have to make is that I just have to keep my thumb flagged high. If I'm fighting for this gun, I can do one of two things. Either I can drop my thumb to the side of the holster, so then that way it is not on the retention mechanism and it stays in there, or I can use the back of the slide that I'm just trying to press the gun into the holster and fight the guy off. Superior design in retention fighting for the gun. Here's another option. This is an SLS hood that Gabe at the Armory made for me for my VP9. Technically it's for a gun with a light on it, so it's a little rattly in there right now, but you'll get the point. So what happens here is that this is the outside, this is a left-handed holster, and so if somebody's getting around the outside, this is gonna stay in place and keep the gun in place. I have to get a full firing grip on this and use my thumb, not my trigger finger, to push this retention out of the way. That's how the SLS hood works. Far superior retention system to a trigger finger release. So if Serpas suck so much and they are hot garbage like they are, why are they so popular? I have a theory. First of all, my theory is local gun shops stock them, and so new shooters, when they come in, they think, oh, having something to keep somebody from pulling this gun off me is a good idea. The local gun store has this one in stock, and so therefore they buy it. But let's ask the question, why? I polled some firearms retailers about what's going on with this holster. And you know what's funny? Number one, this is one of the most profitable holsters on the market. In fact, the markup on this one, the MSRP, is 100% of wholesale. And the MAP, the minimum advertised price, is another 90%. So this holster is profitable. So why do gun stores stock it? Because they make a lot of money. And some gun stores, I'm not going to say all, but some care more about making profit than about helping people with quality choices. The other part of this is that they are in stock. Blackhawk does a good job of keeping them around and keeping them in stock, and so they're immediately available to stock the shelves of retailers. Whereas somebody like Safariland, they have to be made to order, and so when the order comes in, they make the holsters and send them out to you. So it's about an 8-week delay. So this one is easier to get in stock. It's more profitable to get in stock, and so they shop and keep these in their shop for more suckers to buy, and the more suckers buy them, the more groupthink sets in. Works for me, and that's great. So don't carry in a Serpa. It's hot garbage. Get something better, like a Safariland. This is the kind of retention holster that you want. Yes, they're a little harder to find, but go on the interwebs. You'll find them. Buy one. It's better. Pro tip. Don't use the paddle attachment. Use the belt attachment instead. This represents old derp. I haven't carried this holster in a while. I'd replace this now and put the belt loops on it if I was going to carry it. So once again, if we have 3 tests for what is an acceptable firearm, that it covers the trigger guard completely, that it holds the firearm securely, and it allows access to the firearm correctly, then this holster fails on the 3rd part of the acceptable holster tests. The Blackhawk Serpa is not an acceptable holster because of all of the problems with the retention release in safety, because of the maintenance issues with it, because of how it works. It is not an acceptable holster. It is hot garbage. Throw it in the trash and get something better. Pretty please. Thus ends another lesson in Butthurt Inducing Truth.